Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was replaced by Tsukuyomi's Otherworld version. Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Ino times Tenten times Tamari times Kurenai times Anko times Tsunade times Shizune times Mei Terumi times Konan times Yugito times Samui, Filler Harem, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. You see, Naruto, the Kyuubi no Yoko that killed Iruka's parents, ravaged the lands of the elemental nations for years, and slaughtered thousands of people in our village lies inside you and has taken you over. You are the Kyuubi no Yoko. A white-haired man proclaimed with a sick, twisted grin on his face. The man chuckled when he saw the look of despair and shock on a young, blonde boy's face as the realization came down upon him. Stop it, Mizuki. The white-haired man named Mizuki laughed as he turned to his former teaching associate, Yumi no Iruka. Well, it was no surprise why. Mizuki had just broken one of the most important laws and secrets in all of Konoha's history. Well, not like it mattered to him. In a few hours, he'd be out of the village along with that scroll strapped to the blonde's back. Might as well sink it home now. Didn't you think it was weird how they hated you and treated you like dirt for no reason? All the secrets and conspiracies they've kept from you. How they hated you for just trying to live your life. I bet even your favorite sensei hates your damn guts. Mizuki exclaimed, laughing psychotically as Naruto vehemently denied everything. Ah yes, there was that rising chakra, that feeling of rage, that power that was just waiting to be unleashed. That said, Mizuki wouldn't want that power to be released on him. He'd have to take care of it before it got out of control. Imagine, he, Mizuki, the one people mocked and looked down on, would be the slayer of the Kyuubi. Mizuki grabbed his Fuma shuriken. With expert skill, and years of training, he swung the hands around in his fingers. Now, how about I do both you and the village a favor before I go? Now that you know the truth, I'm sure you don't want to live with the shame anymore. I'll help you on the ferry to the Shinigami. Don't miss your ride, the white-haired man shouted as he threw the oversized weapon at the 12-year-old boy. No, no, Naruto, get down, Iruka shouted at the top of his lungs, but he watched in shock and horror as Naruto must not have heard him. The young academy instructor gasped as he tried to move so he could protect his student, but the kunai were wedged in too deep. Naruto wasn't moving. Shocked by the information presented to him, upset by the revelation of the very reason for his despicable life, fed up with all his efforts bearing no results, the blonde closed his eyes. Then, Yumi no Iruka could only watch in shock, horror, and sadness as the Fuma shuriken hit its mark. The young boy's head split from his shoulders. His orange jumpsuit-clad body twitched before it fell to its knees. His whiskered face rolled across the field until it smacked against the trunk of a tree. The head stared at Iruka. Its wide, blue eyes accusing him, judging him, damning him for his weakness. Naruto. No. I failed. I failed you. Iruka thought as he felt the bile rise on his mouth before he expelled it over the open grassy fields. Hot tears fell down his eyes. He was a damn teacher. What kind of teacher was he if he couldn't save one of his students? What was wrong with him? What was he even doing? Naruto, I knew what it was like. I knew what you were going through, but I never tried to help. I knew what it was like to be starved for attention, to do stupid stuff just so people would acknowledge you exist. I knew you weren't the hardest worker, but you knew that nothing came easy. Because of my own grief, I couldn't help you like I should have. I'm sorry, Naruto. I'm so sorry. Iruka wailed as he smacked his head on the ground, blood dripping from his forehead. Meanwhile, Mizuki cackled. He actually did it. He actually did what not even the Yondaime had done. He had killed the Kyuubi, Uzumaki Naruto. How many would sing praises of his deeds? What would Lord Orochimaru say to such a thing? Don't be sad, Iruka. You'll be joining him soon enough. When you're both resting in hell, you'll have plenty of time to repent for your sins of caring about such a pathetic demon child. The traitor to Konoha said. Iruka scowled. Mizuki. The academy roared as the chakra inside him exploded. He charged for the murderer of his student. Naruto, you might never forgive him, but at least Iruka would make damn sure your death would not be for nothing. Mizuki cackled as he clashed kunai with Iruka. The two shinobi fought in the depths of the Konoha forests, no one to watch them, or so they thought. Far within the divine plane, a beautiful woman with wonderful lavender hair, and a lavender dress widened her eyes in sheer panic. She quickly began looking through some white-colored scrolls, her eyes moving quickly to try and salvage any part of this horrid situation that she could. Her fingers clenched her dress. Just how did things come to this? He died. This wasn't the realm he was supposed to die in. Oh no, if mother finds out I let him die while under my domain, I'll be locked in the endless void for the next 50 eons. Why didn't he move? He moved in every other we've placed him in. Oh no, I can't ask the Shinigami to resurrect him, he'll definitely tell mother about this. The woman thought to herself as she placed a hand over her mouth. The woman looked over the life of Uzumaki Naruto. Well, let it be clarified. She was looking over the life of one Uzumaki against the hundreds, thousands, millions of other Uzumaki Narutos across every realm that her mother, Kami, had created. As with every universe that the woman's mother had created, there had been numerous versions of the young blonde that appeared through the multiverse. Her mother seemed to enjoy the man so much because he always provided the perfect balance of good and evil. The boy was like a blank canvas, easily able to become either or depending on what Kami needed him to be. Some Narutos were so good that they got to be reincarnated until the end of time, forever aware of the legacy they left. Others were so evil their very deeds would shake even the divine plane. Yet, since he was born, the young man was the ultimate manifestation of infinite possibilities. In fact, he was one of Kami and Yami's most favorite. Admittedly, he wasn't the only one. There had been many heroes and villains of numerous universes that had been given the same treatment. Yin and Yang, light and darkness, there always needed to be a balance between Kami and Yami. Though her mother and her aunt hated each other, they still worked to preserve this balance. This balance between all these universes was vastly important. If it was disrupted, it would all die away, including the divine plane. And that was why the woman was panicking. This Naruto wasn't supposed to die yet. He was supposed to become another Hokage and lead his world, through his death, into an era of almost eternal peace. How did he die? It shouldn't have been possible. I don't know what to do. Should I just force the rebirth of another Naruto? But there are so many of them, I can't remember who is who. Mother, this is why I told you not to make so many. The woman said to herself before there came a knock on her door. Lady Tsukuyomi, your mother requires your presence. Lady Amaterasu and Lord Susanoo will be joining soon. I am told Lady Shinigami shall also be there, someone said behind the door. A meeting, mother. Now, Tsukuyomi, the goddess of the moon, exclaimed as she bit the side of her finger. I shall not be attending. Tell mother, I'll go to the next one, she replied. She didn't have time for this. She needed to fix this mistake before it came back to bite her in her royal, divine. I'm sorry, Lady Tsukuyomi, but that's not possible. Your mother demands you now. She has not forgotten that you've been absent from most. She warned me to tell you that should you not attend, she shall send you to the edge of eternity for 2 eons, the person behind the door said. Tsukuyomi shivered. The edge of eternity. That was way worse than the endless void. This one then. I'll rebirth this one and swap him out with the dead one. He was almost at the end of his life anyway. No one will question it. What is this checklist? Yes, 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 no, damn it, yes to the rest. She thought before she waved the list of light away and got herself ready to meet with her mother, a sigh of relief that she fixed her mistake. Though no one was around to see, a harsh glow appeared over the decapitated blonde's body. What could only be described as some divine, white-colored seal appeared beneath the body. Slowly, the corpse sank into the seal. Once it, and all traces of it were gone, the seal disappeared. After that another seal appeared, this one was much larger, and blue in color. The seal glowed with a harsh light before a young boy came through. Just like the last, his hair was blonde and his cheeks were stained with whisker-like markings. The orange jumpsuit from the corpse quickly transferred to the unconscious boy on the ground. Then came a massive swirl of red chakra. That chakra surged in the air like a violent maelstrom before it swiftly settled into the unconscious boy's navel. Soon, all was quiet before he opened his eyes. He quickly yawned and scratched his head. So this is what the afterlife is like. I'd always assumed that once the chakra carrying the consciousness of the soul left my body, then I'd most likely disperse until the planet's natural chakra veins carried me off to the next plane. This changes a few perceived theories. Perhaps chakra is indeed not connected to soul of the user, but rather it's a synthesis based on the physical and spiritual energies between the breathing and the earth itself. If I wasn't dead, I'd like to verify this. Naruto, you're rambling again, Dadbayo. The blonde said as he leaned up and stretched his body. He heard a few bones click. Wait, bones? Huh, I have bones. I didn't think we kept our mortal bodies when we died as well. Still, should there be not someone to greet me? I assumed the Shinigami would collect me eventually. I'd spoken to the spirit before about the nature of the realm of the dead. Perhaps souls of dispersed chakra roam around aimlessly until they are collected. It could give reason to all those stupid ghost stories that pop up every now and then. Still, if that was the case, then there'd be no need for the perfect Edo Tensei to be utilized. And, the chakra here, it feels so primitive, Dadbayo. I feel like I'm surrounded by chakra from the last 1,000 years. That shouldn't be possible, the young man said as he grew more and more concerned. He stood up and then pressed his hand to one of the trees. Even the chakra of the trees is different. I can't feel even one bit of pure chakra within it. That should be impossible. Am I not dead? Naruto said to himself before he held up a hand sign. Junsuina Chakura. Kuken Bunkatsu, pure chakra. Spatial divide, Naruto said. A bright, white light outlined his body before a solid mass of pure chakra with a humanoid shape expelled from his body. The humanoid chakra shape opened its eyes. The former unconscious young man stared at himself. Is that me? Well, clearly I'm not in the realm of the dead. There were no theories that dying somehow reverted your age back to that of a child. Also, what are those clothes? I don't remember wearing those even when I was a child. How odd. I feel the pure chakra within me, but there is also something else in there. I see this primitive red chakra of a beast there as well. It lies dormant behind this seal on my stomach, he thought as he scratched his chin. The Shishofuin, 4 symbols seal. Who the hell even uses this anymore? I read this was used near the very first history of the shinobi. It's so outdated and worthless that you can't even classify it as AD rank fuinjutsu. Not even genin would use this, there's simply better options. Have I traveled to the past? Naruto thought. No, that shouldn't be possible. If he did travel to the past, then the max he should have been able to go was when he was born. At least that was the theory of such a thing. If one person traveled back to the past, then that created a distortion which had the potential to unravel the very fabric of the elemental nations. Well, either that or the person just got to stay in the past. No, this couldn't be the past because the earth itself contained pure chakra. It had only been in his generation that he'd been the one to first discover and make use of it. His findings had changed the very structure of the elemental nations and rocketed it into a unified land of every nation and people with him at the very front of it. There was no pure chakra on this earth. In fact, dare he say, from the millions of chakra signatures he felt, he was the only pure chakra user in the world. How was that possible? He had only one answer, one theory. Maybe, this wasn't his Earth. Maybe he was on another Earth. The theory on more than one universe was only studied at the very end of his life. It would explain why he was a child when he should have been over 80 years old. He remembered his heart stopping as he was surrounded by all those who loved him. He said goodbye to his wives and his children to continue his work. It would certainly explain why this planet felt so primitive and underdeveloped. How had he arrived here? Could he go back? Too many questions and not even answers. Naruto scratched his chin and sat next to a tree. How vexing. Suddenly, the blonde stiffened when he heard the sounds of clanging kunai. In his thoughts he must have tuned out the noise. A frown, he made his way to the noise. Meanwhile, Iruka groaned as he was kicked into a tree. He coughed as a trail of blood fell down the side of his lip. He glared at Mizuki while his former friend stood over him. Never pegged you for a demon lover, Iruka. I guess everyone shows their true colors at their final moments. If it's any consolation, Iruka, you never had a chance anyway, Mizuki taunted. Iruka clutched his side. It was bleeding profusely. He could already feel his consciousness fading. No, he couldn't die like this. If he did, he'd never be able to look Naruto in the eye for his shame. Mizuki, I think between the both of us, you've shown exactly who the real demon is, Iruka spat out. You're breaking my heart, Iruka, but I think we've stalled this long enough. Say hello to Naruto for me. Mizuki shouted as he lunged for his former associate. The Chunin closed his eyes, remorse filling his body for his own weakness. Naruto, I'm sorry, Iruka thought as he waited for death. That said, his meeting with the Shinigami was delayed. He heard someone speak. You, kneel. What the, Iruka opened his eyes. He gasped when he saw Mizuki's forehead planted on the dirt. His body was back to the deeper entrances of the forest. What the is going on? Iruka, you bastard, what did you do to me? Mizuki snarled, but Iruka couldn't reply. He was too hurt. Truth be told, he had no idea. He was ready to die just a few moments ago. However, the Chunin Academy teacher wasn't ready for who he saw emerge from the dark forests. As I thought, taking command of such primitive chakra is almost too easy. This type of chakra can't hold the resistance if pure chakra comes into contact with it. I'll have to change my plans then. Iruka widened his eyes and so did Mizuki when they saw the young form of Uzumaki Naruto, with his head intact. As a shinobi, even more so as a Chunin, Iruka had seen many things in his life. He'd seen devastating jutsu, amazing worlds crafted by genjutsu, and fought powerful people, but never had he seen the utter miracle before him right now. Was Mizuki right? Was Naruto a demon? As far as the Yumino male was concerned, the only way Naruto survived was if he was a god, or the devil. Naruto, Iruka shivered while Mizuki chuckled. Hey, hee hee, ha ha ha, now do you see, Iruka? The brat got beheaded and he still came back. I don't know any human that can do that. Now it's showing its true colors. The traitor cackled while Naruto stood in front of him. The blonde then raised his foot and slammed it on the white-haired man's head. You talk too much, you know. I've got some questions and I bet you've got answers for me. Give me what I need and maybe I'll find an appropriate use for you, Naruto remarked, his tone confident and a smile on his face. No, Naruto. Get out of here. You can't beat Mizuki. Just take the scroll back to the village and alert Hokage-sama. Iruka shouted. The blonde raised an eyebrow at him, but the brunette man didn't care. Maybe it was all a genjutsu, he didn't know. But he was a teacher and he couldn't let Naruto die again. He wouldn't let his student die again. Listen to me, Naruto. You have to get silence. Naruto spoke when he glared at Iruka. Suddenly, the man closed his mouth and he murmured in frantic motions. No matter how hard he tried to open his mouth, it's like the very privilege had been taken from him. Something foreign seemed to invade his body and take away his ability for speech. Naruto turned back to Mizuki. When he'd heard the two fighting, he had watched them for a time. Primitive gear, primitive weapons, primitive jutsu usage, all of it was just so painstakingly bad. If Naruto was in a new world, then Kami how backwater was it? Compared to what he'd accomplished, it was like he was watching cavemen fight. The jutsu they threw around were filled with impure chakra, thousands of leagues below his own. Naruto knew both these men. Iruka and Mizuki were men he'd worked with before. The latter was a guard to the Hokage and the former was an Anbu back during the times that the elemental nations were still divided. He worked with them because when he'd accessed the pure chakra of the veins in the earth, it was crucial for him to be protected. He'd fought in numerous battles with the two. But seeing these iterations of them fight, clearly they weren't the same as the ones he'd worked with. Now, he didn't know where the two had their allegiances. They both had on Konoha headbands and he wouldn't take any chances on being deceived, not that they'd be that good at it. The blonde turned back to Mizuki. You're going to answer all my questions. I recommend you do so, Mizuki-kun. I don't wanna hurt you, Naruto responded. The former Chunin of Konoha laughed. You hurt me. I think death made you bolder and stupider than I thought. Why would I answer anything to an academy failure like you? I'll never tell you anything even if I die. Mizuki proclaimed. So in this world I'm a failure in the academy. Well, that's one of my questions answered, albeit unknowingly, Naruto thought to himself. The young blonde sighed and raised his foot. He then slammed it down over Mizuki's head again. The Chunin screamed as his face was buried into the ground, a large indent left there. I'm willing to make that bet. First question. Have you ever heard of the unified nation of elements? The blonde asked. Quote. Mizuki didn't speak. Naruto held up 2 fingers. Have you ever heard of the unified nation of elements? He asked again. Quote. Naruto snapped his fingers. Ow ow ow. Mizuki screamed in utter agony as he felt what he could only describe as hellish pain push through his body. It felt like thousands of blades punctured the innards of his body from the inside out. Worst of all, he could do nothing to stop it. He was kept pinned in his prostrating position, Naruto's foot firmly planted on his head. Iruka watched in horror as Mizuki mercilessly screamed, but he didn't see any attack. He didn't see the utter agony that Mizuki was going through. He couldn't imagine the hell, the torture, the sheer depths of utter agony raging inside his former friend, but he could see it in the way Mizuki's eyes turned bloodshot. Whatever made him scream, it must have been worse than hell itself. Suddenly, the pain subsided. Did you feel that, Mizuki-kun? You might not know it, but there are things called chakra nerves that flow right through a living being's chakra network. These nerves are interconnected with the nerves of the body. It's why some people claim their chakra feels warm, or sometimes it feels cold. The nerves react to that feeling, and they are 50 times more sensitive than the regular body's nervous system. What I just did was use your own chakra to puncture both your chakra nerves and your body's nerves at the same time. You're actually stronger than I predicted. Anyone normal would have passed out from that, Naruto said with an upward smirk. Why you damn demon. I knew you were a monster. Mizuki gargled upon his own spit as he glared murderously at the ground. Oh, and what exactly makes one a monster, Mizuki-kun? It can't be the death of others. That's a profession that's been happening since the first 2 mortals walked the earth. Perhaps, it's the raw power. Well, when shinobi can bend the elements, it's hardly anything special. Is it killing for fun? Would you say that's worse or better than killing for money? So tell me, Mizuki-kun, what exactly is a monster to you? Naruto asked. I'll kill you. All, ahagu gwhgghh. Mizuki groaned as Naruto snapped his fingers again. Have you heard of the United Nations of Elements? Naruto asked. Still Mizuki did not answer. Aha ow. No ow 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 ow. Guau. Over and over for the next 20 minutes, Iruka was subjected to Mizuki's unholy screams as he watched his former student visibly torture the Konoha traitor. He constantly asked the same question over and over again. More and more blood started to see through Mizuki's pores and even from his eyes. The Yumino male wondered just how much his former friend could take before his body suddenly dropped. Naruto saw this as well and raised an eyebrow. He died. Interesting. If this is a new world, then the bodies here are also more fragile than I thought. Well, we can't have that, the blonde said as he placed a hand on Mizuki's back. He grunted as he pushed a wave of pure chakra through the white-haired man's body. Slowly, Iruka's eyes widened as the scars, cuts, and bruises on Mizuki's body disappeared. The blood seeped back into his body as if it never left in the first place. Then, the Chunin heard his former friend gasp. The look of terror in his eyes was evident. What the? Ah! Mizuki screamed as Naruto slammed his head back into the ground. Congratulations on dying once, Mizuki-kun. I'll get my answers out of you and not even death will keep you from me unless I allow it. You just got jump-started with a small dose of my pure chakra. Be glad, you're the first primitive man here that's gotten it. I'd be interested in studying its effects on you had I the time, but we're both pretty busy. Now then, have you heard of the United Nations of Elements? Naruto asked. Mizuki looked at the ground, scared. He thought he'd gotten away. He bit on his tongue and choked on his own blood to kill himself. The pain was too much. He couldn't take it. He had felt his life slipping away. He had won, until he felt life kick him right in the face, the breath moving through his body and the pain, right along with it. He had been brought back. He could feel his tongue strike his teeth. It had been repaired. He couldn't get away. Aha! The former Chunin of Konoha screamed. Again, he felt 1,000 chakra blades from his own chakra coils stabbing him through his chakra veins and the nerves in his body. All of them at the same time. It wasn't long before Mizuki died again. And again. And again. And again. And again. And again. His blood splattered over the grass and Iruka could do nothing but watch powerless and traumatized by the acts before him. Have you heard of the United Nations of Elements? Naruto asked as he prepared himself to snap his fingers again. No, Naruto-sama. I haven't heard of the United Nations of Elements, Mizuki said, his voice a quiet tremble which made the blonde pause. Then this might actually be another elemental nations from where I was. I was also returned to my body as a child. Interesting, the blonde thought. Do you know what pure chakra is? He asked. No, Naruto-sama, he answered. Where are we right now? The blonde asked. We're in Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, the white-haired man whimpered. Naruto's eyes narrowed. So even its name is different from mine. This truly might be another Konoha separate from my own. Obviously, someone brought me here. I'll have to find out why. This will require extreme investigation, the young man thought before he took his foot off Mizuki's head. Thank you, Mizuki-kun. Now, one last thing and I'll let you go, Naruto said. He then channeled the pure chakra inside his body into his hand. Like a glowing limb of white fire, it coated his entire arm. He pressed his hand on Mizuki's head. Suddenly, the 12-year-old was assaulted with many memories of Mizuki from his birth until now as well as his relationship regarding the young blonde. It all seemed to span the time of about 10 seconds before Naruto released his hold. So that's things from Mizuki's perspective. I'll have to get to a library, research everything I know about this place. Also, it doesn't seem I'm well liked, the blue-eyed boy said. Well, that one wasn't much of a surprise. Actually, let him correct that. It wasn't that he wasn't liked, but people feared him. After all, what do you do when one of the most powerful earth chakra veins, the Kyuubi god, marks you as its avatar? You tend to be feared quite a lot. Now, it seemed the opposite was the case. The Kyuubi was supposedly a great demon that attacked Konoha more than 12 years ago, decimating the village's lands and its people. It killed thousands of people before it was apparently sealed into Naruto, or this world's Naruto who was killed. That said, It seemed that the chakra of the Kyuubi had moved over to this body. Perhaps that was the reason. The blonde could feel the elements of impure chakra coursing through his body against his pure chakra. Now it was obvious someone sent him here. But who? And why? I need to figure that out. Naruto thought before he released Mizuki. Thank you for being very complacent, Mizuki-kun. As promised, I'll let you go now, Naruto said as he released his hold on the man and walked over to Iruka. There were some things he wanted to ask this Chunin as well. While the other was a traitor, this one was a loyal Konoha shinobi. He could learn much from him. Meanwhile, Mizuki gasped as he glared at Naruto with unfathomable hatred and disdain. The pain he'd suffered made him so angry he nearly lost his damn mind. This academy failure, this demon, this nine-tailed fox brat actually caused him pain. He'd make him suffer. He'd make him suffer for this. The white-haired Chunin stood up. He grabbed one of his spare Fuma shuriken. He was through getting humiliated like this. He was not going to deal with this from a failure of the academy. I'll let you go too. Straight to the Shinigami. Mizuki hollered as he threw the enlarged shuriken for the blonde's neck once again, hoping to Kami that he'd get to see that head severed from its shoulders again. Naruto turned around and sighed. He then rolled his eyes as he knocked the kunai away like it was a mere annoyance. Mizuki and Iruka gawked at the sight before Naruto pointed a finger at the standing Chunin. Naruto spoke. Iruka was stunned into silence as Mizuki instantly burst into a large puddle of blood and limbs. He stared in fear of the Kyuubi host as Naruto's hand became aflamed with the same white chakra as before. The blonde then touched the loyal Chunin's head. He scanned all of Iruka's memories as well as what led up to this point. So, this Naruto was deceived by Mizuki to steal this forbidden scroll in exchange for learning a jutsu from it. It seemed he succeeded too. A shame he never got to use it. Shadow clones, incomplete ones at that. Still, they're supposed to be solid constructs against the regular Bunshin. The fact that they aren't real makes them that subpar. Then again, I suppose for a world of incomplete and impure chakra, it's not a bad start. No wonder it's forbidden. The chakra veins aren't even strong enough to handle such a simple jutsu. To think, it's a jutsu that children use back where I come from. Naruto removed his head and sighed as Iruka laid unconscious from the act that the blonde had just done. So Iruka's loyal to Konoha and it seems have created a reasonable fear of myself in him from my actions. It'd be troublesome to have to deal with this world I know nothing about before I've gained a foothold in it. Plus, there are chakra signatures coming this way. I'd really appreciate doing this, but it's for a good reason I suppose. I'll just rewrite his memories. I learned the shadow clone jutsu and defeated Mizuki. He escaped, but I retrieved the scroll. Seems about right, the blonde said to himself before he began working on that exact thing. Once he was done, Iruka slowly opened his eyes and groaned. Iruka-sensei, are you alright? Naruto asked, his voice filled with perfectly feigned concern. Iruka chuckled painfully. Naruto, close your eyes for a moment, he said. Playing up the act, the blonde did so. Okay. Open them, Iruka said. He did so. It seemed the memory rewrite worked better than he could have imagined. He saw the other Naruto's goggles in the deceased boy's former sensei's hand. On his own forehead was a Konoha Hitai 8, forehead protector. Congratulations. You graduate, Iruka said with a large smile on his face as the sun began to rise over the horizon. Naruto's lips thinned. Should I really sell it? I don't really feel like it. Tisk, whatever, I won't have to keep up this farce for very long, the blonde thought before he sobbed, and tackled Iruka against a tree, thanking the man over and over. The Chunin chuckled while he grimaced in pain. Once this whole act was done, Iruka grabbed the scroll. Still, stealing the scroll. That was very stupid, Naruto. You can't just trust everything adults say. You're going to be a shinobi now. You'll have to wise up, he chastised while Naruto rolled his eyes and listened to this spiel while apologizing for his actions. This continued on for about 5 minutes before the blonde's patience grew short. So will I be in trouble, Iruka-sensei? Naruto asked. Well, not that we know the truth, I doubt it. Listen, I'll take the scroll back to Hokage-sama. I'll also explain everything. If he wants to see you, then I'll come get you. For now, go enjoy your day. However, be ready, we'll need to get your picture taken for your shinobi license and registration. Next week, be at the academy, there you will be assigned your team and Jonin-sensei, Iruka said. I see. So it's team-based with one elite shinobi instead of one elite shinobi to one student. I suppose it's more efficient giving this village's smaller shinobi-sized datbao, the blue-eyed blonde thought to himself. Are you sure, Iruka-sensei? You're hurt, he exclaimed. Ha ha ha, I'm tougher than I look. Now go. I sense some people coming anyway, he said. Seeing that to be the case, Naruto nodded and waved goodbye as he ran off. Once he was out of view, his eyes lost their warmth. Finally, he'd grown sick of that nonsense. The young Uzumaki quickly entered the more populated parts of the village. It must have been really early because no one was out yet. He surveyed the buildings, the dirt roads, and the shinobi that seemed to be running around on the rooftops. I see. They're even less advanced than I thought. A lot of wasted movements, and imbalanced chakra in all of them. I never even thought such a nation could function like this. They're also not that inconspicuous with their hidden facilities, he thought with narrowed eyes when he looked at the ground. Numerous chakra signatures laid beneath him, some larger than others. Hoping to collect himself, Naruto decided to head to what he assumed was home first. He found it easily enough. A small apartment complex in some sector of the village. He snorted. He'd really hit rock bottom, especially when he opened his room and noticed just how much of a slob the other Naruto was. I've heard greatness is suffering, but I've never wanted to kill myself so badly. How much of a slob was he? Naruto asked himself as he looked around the rooms of his new home. Expired milk, moldy bread, bags of trash in a corner, empty cups of ramen, dried clothes hung on wires, he pinched the bridge of his nose. Sure, he was no paragon of cleanliness either, but this was unacceptable. He'd never complain about a maid's duties again. Well, whatever. He thought as he began cleaning up the room. He couldn't think with all this shit in here. He held up a hand sign. Junsuina Chakura. Bunshin no Jutsu, pure chakra. Clone technique, Naruto claimed and created 3 clones. Let's get to work, he said. Yes, sir. They replied. So Naruto and the clones cleaned up the apartment until it was up to his standards. He cleaned the sink, rinsed out the dishes, swept and mopped the floor, and folded the clothes. He also cleaned the sheets of his bed. When he opened the food containers, he chuckled. Well, at least I had good taste. Nice ramen collection, Naruto thought before he closed the cabinets. A few hours passed by, but finally the apartment looked presentable. It was actually a shame. Despite it being his home, he felt like he was intruding a little bit. From what Naruto saw between the lives of this Naruto, Iruka, and Mizuki, the young man's life wasn't a joy-filled one. He never got to fulfill his dream of being the Hokage. Quite the tragedy. Either way, the blonde sat on his bed and stared outside. Once he was sure he was alone, he held up his hand and made a hand sign. Kaiman, he spoke, and a small box appeared in front of him. It fell into his hands. He opened it and reached inside. Once he found what he was looking for, he pulled it out. Alright, Forbidden Scroll, let's see what you're actually made of, Naruto thought to himself. Sorry Iruka, you and the rest of Konoha would have to settle for a perfect replica of the Forbidden Scroll. This information was much too vital to let you have and not research. It wasn't exactly hard to replicate. It seemed Iruka and Mizuki forgot about the scroll in their fight. Well, whatever. That wasn't his problem. As Naruto opened the scroll, his frown got deeper and deeper. Each technique he read, he shook his head. TCH, Basic, incomplete, primitive, incorrect, worthless, Naruto grumbled as he looked through each technique. Honestly, how had these people not killed themselves yet? The young blonde chuckled disbelievingly. Just what kind of people were these? Shadow clones, 8 trigram sealing, Shinigami summoning, all of this was freaking worthless shit. Where he came from, Genin could perform all of this in their sleep. What the kind of backwater world was he summoned to? They're so behind they think a Kekai Genkei is based on family genetic structure. Oh, Naruto thought as he rubbed his temples. Okay, he could work with this. First things first, information. Yes, that's what he needed. First stop, the library. Naruto did just that. He quickly redressed himself and dashed towards the library. Thanks to the other Naruto's memories, he had a good layout of the village. Plus, there was no need to be on the streets. While he didn't care about the villagers either way, he'd rather not draw the attention of them if he didn't need to. He entered the library and until night spent all his time in the library reading through every book he could find and map aloud to him. Those who frequented the library stared in utter shock as the blonde piled mountains and mountains of books on top of one another. Even the librarian had to come over and question if he was reading all of them. That is what books are for, no. The Kyuubi host replied before he was left alone. By the time Naruto got back to his other self's apartment, he was exhausted. No, not from the reading. That was actually rather insightful. It was the stupidity of every single piece of information presented to him that was driving him insane. Okay, I'm just about to exclude all the wrong shit about jutsu and chakra theory in all of these books. I'll go insane if I don't. Okay, let me just focus on the history. So Konoha was founded by Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. They had a falling out and Madara presumably died from the fallout. Hashirama then died some time before or during the First Great Shinobi War. Then came Hashirama's brother, Tobirama. Following him was the Sandaime and then the Yondaime. If we're keeping with the principle of parallel worlds, then I assume that Naruto was the son of Minato Namikaze just as I was. I wonder why he wasn't told, Naruto thought to himself before he sighed. Then there's the fact that Mizuki was going to give the scroll to Orochimaru. The latter's a part of a group called the Sannin consisting of the Toad Sage, Jiraiya, Slug Queen, Tsunade, and Serpent's Tongue, Orochimaru. In this world, all three are legendary figures. Orochimaru's a defect from Konoha for insane experiments. Tsunade constructed the principles of medical ninjutsu, and Jiraiya is said to possess an extensive spy network in favor of the village. The highest chakra signatures aren't them. The highest seems to be the Sandaime in the Hokage Tower. Naruto leaned on his bed and stared at the ceiling. This world, why was it so far behind? Why was he called here? Maybe he was supposed to help advance it, but what good would that do him? He didn't know, and Uzumaki Naruto didn't like not knowing things. Finally, the young genin sighed. Whatever. I'll think on this later. Right now, I need to center myself and my pure chakra, Naruto said as he closed his eyes and crossed his legs. Indeed, while powerful, pure chakra required constant meditation to maintain. To have it run out of control was not a good thing, especially not in a weak world like this. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki exhaled as he allowed the white, untainted chakra to circulate around him. He focused on pulling the chakra through every fiber of his being. Slowly, he lost himself in the embrace of the chakra veins he'd spent over 80 years studying and strengthening. So lost was he in his practice, the blonde had no idea of the effect he was having outside his apartment. Outside Naruto's apartment, people stared in utter awe as what they could only describe as a celestial body of stars pulled themselves together to form one entity. People gasped in utter shock as the figure moved through various motions. Chakra, like solid crystals, rained down over the village hidden in the leaves. Everyone from Genin to the Hokage himself stared in awe as the trees glowed with ethereal light. They seemed to be sucking in the crystals that showed down on every which way. Countless stars flew across the starry night sky. Some couldn't help falling to their knees as rays of light flew off into the distance. Where they landed, beautiful pillars appeared. Some people couldn't take the beauty of it and began confessing their love to those near to them. Some asked for another's hand in marriage as the most beautiful scene to be presented to Konoha happened over their village. Of course, some erred on the side of caution in case of enemy attack, but none could deny the way that the celestial being moved. In fact, it seemed to defy all science and common sense. Each place where it struck light, the trees and forests exploded with vibrancy and color. The spectacle continued for about 10 minutes until the being slowly disappeared. None knew it at that moment, but stories of that being would spread far and wide throughout Konoha. Meanwhile, Naruto opened his eyes and groaned. He had to admit, having a young body certainly had its benefits. With his practice done, Naruto climbed into bed and fell asleep. He had to admit, the bed was rather cozy, if a bit smaller than what he was used to. 2 days passed by for Naruto. He was called to get his picture taken. Truthfully, he didn't remember much about it. He just gave a generic photo. In honor of the Naruto that died, he thought about doing something crazy, but he wasn't that insane yet. He just took his picture and presented it before the Sandaime Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen. The Sandaime looked at the photo before he looked back at the blonde. Honestly, it had been a stressful few days dealing with the aftermath of the boy's latest stunt. Iruka had given him the entire rundown of the series of events while being looked over at the hospital. Unfortunately, it seemed Mizuki had escaped, but Naruto actually managed to learn a jutsu from the Forbidden Scroll. Hiruzen had spoken with Iruka many times, and if the man felt the blonde had passed, then he'd honor that. That said, Hiruzen had spent the past few days going over that celestial being from before with the Konoha Council. He already had a team of astronomers working on what it could possibly mean. He hadn't had the time to use his crystal ball on the young man. He actually wanted to talk with Naruto about what Mizuki told him being the host of the Kyuubi. The Sandaime didn't say it often, but he did enjoy Naruto. The young boy was vibrant, always striving forward, and he had a good head on his shoulders, albeit with a knack for trouble. He and the rest of Konoha had fallen victim to his pranks many times. As such, it was a surprise that he hadn't gotten a prank in over 2 days. In fact, one of the shinobi told him the blonde had made a name for himself as a bit of a reader in the local library. He'd read nearly 5 or 6 columns of books before the facility closed. The Hokage wondered if he could even do that. Truth be told, Hiruzen was expecting something stupid for a photo, but Naruto was as normal as any other person. In fact, his gaze seemed sharper than normal. Gone was his usual boisterous smile. He was just sitting in the chair, staring at the camera, almost like he was looking right through it. Nice picture, Hiruzen said with a smile. Thanks, Naruto replied, staring at the old Hokage as he did so. The Sandaime placed the paper down and nodded. Well, I hope you like it. I'll be on your card, which will be mailed to you before you find out your team in the academy. Are you prepared for that? He asked. No matter how prepared people are, there is always something that'll test them. I read that in a book, Naruto replied. Sarutobi smiled. Yes, I've heard that you've been frequenting the library. Why the sudden interest in reading? The Hokage asked. Figured I should start taking my career seriously is all, he answered. Hiruzen nodded. He looked at the way Naruto acted. It seemed something changed in him. Maybe the news was more devastating than the aged Hokage thought. Maybe it was better if he didn't bring up the last 2 days for now. He'd just have to keep an eye on Naruto and make sure he kept himself out of trouble. The last thing he wanted was for the boy to start doubting himself. That said, he wished he knew what the young man was thinking with his wandering gaze. Now, if the Sandaime did know what Naruto was thinking, then he would have been utterly stunned. 1, 2, 5, 6 Anbu around the area. And this man, Hiruzen Sarutobi. He's much older than I thought. Where I come from, he died before I was born. Much more powerful too. Though I shouldn't be surprised. If this is what they've worked on, then it's no wonder this one's weaker than the one in my world. Even in this one, not an ounce of pure chakra. I'm starting to wonder if these people only survived because Kami willed it, the young genin thought before he shook his head. Well, I'm glad you've decided to take the steps toward your future. However, you must never let what happened with Mizuki happen again. You're a part of the people that guard Konoha. To be tricked could place the entire village in danger, Hiruzen said. Naruto inwardly smiled. That sounded rather laughable since the other Naruto had basically been tricked his whole life. Still, that wasn't worth getting angry over. I'll keep that in mind. Is that all? He asked. Sarutobi nodded. Yes, you're dismissed, he answered. As Naruto got up, the door suddenly opened. Gigi, the time has come for you to give me the title of Hokage. I'm gonna take you down here and now. Ha! Naruto raised an eyebrow when he saw a boy, even younger than him, charge at the leader of the village with nothing but a shuriken. He ran as fast as he could before he tripped over his blue scarf and banged his head on the floor. Someone please save Naruto. Ow! The boy said before a Jonin came through the door. Honorable grandson, are you alright? A man with glasses asked. Yeah, now was the time for Naruto to split. He quickly moved out the room while the young boy wondered who the hell had tripped him up. It couldn't have been himself. He'd never be that clumsy. Anyway, Naruto ignored the looks sent his way. Well, rather than ignored. He disregarded them entirely. His thoughts were too preoccupied with how his first meeting with the Sandaime Hokage had gone. Well, he's certainly powerful enough with that type of chakra, I guess. Much older than I thought. Still not great. He thought to himself. Well, now that the identification nonsense was out of the way, the blonde could spend some time on some of his other plans for today. Or not. He frowned when he felt someone watching him. He could sense the chakra in the air. If he had to guess, then he bet it was the Hokage whom he'd just left. Not a very discreet shinobi technique, but everything about this world was subpar, so there wasn't much he could do about it. Sure, he could cancel out the jutsu, but why would he give himself added suspicion? Just hurry up and get bored of me. I've got things I need to test this week before this ridiculous team setup happens, Naruto thought to himself as he decided to walk around the village. He supposed it'd be a good time to walk around the village and gather whatever crummy tools he could. It was then that Naruto learned just how bad this world's Naruto was at keeping funds. He was pretty damn bad. When the blonde arrived home, he had the most splitting headache of his life. Honestly, he'd rather go back to signing military documents than deal with what he just dealt with. He pulled out his wallet and snorted when not a single coin dropped out. Broke. Just great, he thought. Well, it wasn't too bad. At least he wouldn't need to rely on shoddy materials. He could always make his own, but with everything being at least 20 to 30 levels below the efficient level of where he'd come from, he doubted it'd be the same. Oh well, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu it was. Who knew? Maybe they'd all learn something. Once the host of the Kyuubi no longer felt the eyes of the Hokage on him. He quickly took off his orange jumpsuit and tossed it away. He grabbed a black, sleeveless shirt and kept on his orange pants. He opened the window to his apartment. He then held up a hand sign. Junsuina Chakura. Hansha mi no Jutsu, pure chakra. Ocular reflection technique, Naruto called out as a flare of white light came over him for a moment. It then faded. Good. Now then, let's go, he said to himself as he dashed out the window and back outside. After some time, Naruto landed on a building just before he stared at the ruins of the Uchiha clan family. He snorted. How funny. The greatest military power, the Uchiha clan in my world becomes a ghost town in this one. I'd like to meet Itachi one day. Always seemed to be too into books when I met him, the blonde thought before he jumped down into the village. He'd read about the Uchiha massacre. He also heard of it from Iruka and Mizuki's memories. Apparently, The Uchiha clan was planning a coup based on the unfair treatment they thought they were getting. It didn't help that the Kyuubi had been controlled by a Sharingan which incriminated the clan even more. A shame this state happened to one of the noble clans that helped found this village. It wasn't the same where he came from. Konoha had been founded by actually 4 clans, the Uzumaki, the Hyuga, the Senju, and the Uchiha. The Senju and the Uchiha became one clan when 2 clan heirs married each other. He'd learned that history fairly early. However, to keep them from holding a monopoly on the village, it was decided that the Senju Uchiha clan couldn't hold the office of Hokage. Naruto never questioned it at the time. He walked through the numerous homes that had been abandoned. He placed his hand on the ground. The blonde pushed a few strings of pure chakra through the ground. Interesting. Even after all this time, there's still some remnants of residual chakra. If I latch my chakra onto these residual chakra signatures, then I can, he thought before he did just that. His chakra mixed with what was left on the ground. Unfortunately, the chakra was too distorted to try and retrieve a memory, but at least he could point out the most concentrated areas that the chakra had been. So, he decided to do that. Clearly, the Uchiha played some part in why Naruto had been given the Kyuubi, and for a beast that powerful, it'd make sense that something in this world drove its instincts. Whether it was divine or damned, maybe that would lead him to why he was summoned here. For the next 6 hours, Naruto moved through the abandoned Uchiha compound following dead-end trails or simple civilian chakra routes that served no purpose. Not even the children were spared aside from Uchiha Sasuke, the talented boy that this Naruto seemed to have some type of begrudging rivalry with. They didn't seem to like each other for whatever reason. Well, that wasn't his problem. As the sun began to set, Naruto grumbled. Forget it. I'll just come back later. I've wasted enough time here. I've gone through hundreds of signatures and gleaned nothing of importance. The jutsu's also about to wear off. Won't be able to cast it again for some time. It's probably why none of the patrols have spotted me yet. I shouldn't push my luck, he thought. With that, Naruto ran back home and just in time before the jutsu expired. Oh well, perhaps tomorrow would yield better results. Meanwhile, far off into the divine plane, Tsukuyomi stared down at what she had done, her eyes wide and her mind in shambles. She blinked. She looked at the settings she put into place as well as the limits on what she's done to get this screw up as finished as possible. Unfortunately, there was one minor detail. There were no limits. Oops. The goddess of the moon blinked as she watched what Naruto did to Mizuki. Tsukuyomi frowned as she looked at the open window in front of her. That was not supposed to happen. Why did all this messed up stuff have to happen while under her domain? Granted, yes, it was her fault, but the point still stood. What should I do? I can't kill him and rebirth another. That'd no doubt get the eyes of Shinigami, which in turn would lead to my mother. Should I just leave him alone? I don't know. I knew I shouldn't have rushed the procedure, but it was an emergency. I can't even revert the changes to him that I made. This isn't good. Well, he hasn't done anything out of the ordinary yet. Mother's always had a soft spot for him. She shouldn't get too mad if I tweak him a tad, the goddess of the moon thought to herself. That said, Tsukuyomi summoned. Immediately, a white-haired woman, lovely in appearance, appeared next to the goddess. Yes, Tsukuyomi-sama, the woman asked. I have an assignment for you. One that requires your utmost discretion, the dark-haired goddess spoke. The woman named Tsukuyomi bowed. By your will, Tsukuyomi-sama, the woman said as the beautiful goddess' smile widened. Good, good. If all of this turned out well, then her mother would have her little Naruto and she wouldn't be cast into the void for the next few eons. Hopefully this all worked out for everyone. All she had to do was hope that this Naruto stayed out of trouble. Naruto yawned and leaned up. He pinched the bridge of his nose as the rays of sun beamed through his apartment's windows. Well, at least the bed's comfortable, he thought to himself as he scratched his head. The blonde rolled out of bed and into the bathroom where he brushed his teeth and took a shower. Once that was done, he opened a journal and started making a list of all the things he'd discovered. Unfortunately, my search of the Uchiha compound didn't amount to much. I figured if the Kyuubi attack was caused by them, then I'd glean some information from their clan. However, the chakra auras are too distorted to go back 12 years. What should I do? He thought as he tapped his pen on the table. Unfortunately, the only Uchiha left alive was Sasuke, and the two basically had no relationship to speak of. He could ask him, but the blonde had a feeling that wouldn't amount to much. That would also mean he'd have to find some other ways of obtaining the information, but most likely only the most heavily guarded shinobi had any sensitive information. It wouldn't be too hard to capture a Jonin and get the information on his own. That was indeed an option. However, if someone did send him here, then he had no way of knowing what agents they had in place, if any. If he did find them, then what would he do? Go back? Could he even do that? Of course, it wasn't all so bad. He basically lived out his life in his old world. Now it was time for his children to take the reins of that world and continue to advance it. Sometimes, you have to let the young make stupid decisions so they'll learn and press forward. There were plenty of things here to keep him preoccupied. He found himself intrigued by the primitive theories of these people. Outdated though they were, maybe he should help them along. Alright, one thing at a time. For now, until I meet my so-called team, in a few days, I'll need a job. The stipend that this Naruto used to get was used recently for his pranking endeavors. If I had some materials, I could make some weapons or some seals to sell on the market. Oh well, I have nothing to do anyway, he thought before he closed his journal and placed it in a floating seal. He then got up and ran to the spot he knew would have work for him. You want to work for me for 4 days? An old man asked as Naruto stood in front of a ramen shop. Ichiraku Ramen, to be exact. The young blonde stood before the father-daughter ramen owners, Tsuki and Ayame. Naruto chuckled. So, even in this world those two were ramen owners. Funny how fate worked out sometimes. Yeah, look, I know you guys run deliveries all over the village. I just need some pocket money while I wait for my stipend. Don't tell me you think there's someone faster than me. I've been doing pranks around this village for years. I think my track record of how many times I've gotten caught speaks for itself. He exclaimed. Tsuki and Ayame glanced at each other. While it was true that they needed a delivery worker, they never thought they'd consider Naruto. That said, he was indeed fast. He'd gotten away with a lot of pranks, but some got him caught because people saw him do it. It wasn't hard to track him down when one knew where he lived. Of course, they did like him. He was their best customer. Plus, they didn't even get the chance to celebrate him becoming a shinobi. Fine, kid, just because I like you I'll allow it. But one mess up and you're gone, got me? Tsuki asked. Naruto inwardly snorted. How hard could delivering ramen be? Got it, he exclaimed. And you can't eat the ramen either. Ayame added. For the sake of their relationship with the other blonde, Naruto allowed that tiny jab to slide. Instead, he grabbed the package and delivery note. He then surprised Tsuki and Ayame when he shot into the air hard enough to crack the ground. Before they could even speak, he was gone. Could he always do that? Ayame asked. You're asking me. I've long since stopped trying to figure out ninja, Tsuki said before he got back to work doing what he loved doing, serving others his food. So, that was how the 4 days went by for Naruto. He worked for Tsuki and Ayame in the daytime, and in the nighttime he decided it'd be good to scavenge around. He raided a few training grounds for lost supplies enough to give him some actual materials. While all of it looked broken, a quick fix wasn't hard to bring to them. All in all, the deliveries weren't hard. Sure, some people were pricks, but he'd dealt with enough to ignore it. What did he care if they didn't get their food? Let them go hungry for all he cared. Either way, Tsuki paid Naruto every day for the days he worked for them. Some, Naruto even worked longer than the standard 8 hours. Hell, the father-daughter duo didn't complain. If Naruto wasn't a shinobi, they might have hired him permanently. Actually, now that the blonde could get behind, he said he'd take the job. Confused, Ayame and Tuki gasped when Naruto created a clone. No, not those stupid primitive shadow clones. He created a pure chakra clone. Of course, they couldn't tell the difference, but they didn't need to. All they needed to know was that he was able to work. Did they take it? Hell yes, they did. Now with a somewhat stable place of income, Naruto woke up one more time. His clone was gone and headed off to work while he grabbed his license which had been mailed to his house 2 days ago. Did he care how it looked? Not really. Either way, he woke up early and made his way towards the academy. The walk was fairly peaceful and he wasn't long before he noticed the academy. To think I'd return to this place a second time. It's much smaller though, he thought before he stepped inside the open doors. From memory of the other Naruto, he found his classroom and opened its sliding doors. When he stepped inside, his mouth thinned. Never thought I'd miss the chakra suppression seals so much. Wouldn't surprise me anymore if no teacher in this academy knew what a seal even was or how to make one. I also noticed the academy wasn't in a hard to get to spot. I remember having to climb the cliffs with one hand tied just to get to school. Seems much more lenient here, he thought before he found some random seat and sat down. Since he was alone, he decided to read some more. This was an authored book by the third Hokage. Something about the details of chakra control and chakra theory. Again, all of it was outdated. Basically, it was way too impractical. With a roll of his eyes, Naruto continued reading until more students arrived. Some gawked when they saw Uzumaki Naruto, the Uzumaki Naruto, actually willing to read a book. However, more than that, some of them were surprised to see him in the classroom with them. Naturally, they had all heard that he failed, which seemed to make for a good laugh. Unfortunately, it seemed some things had changed. As more and more people arrived, Naruto discreetly eyed some of the clan heirs. As expected, they weren't hard to identify. Hell, he went to the academy with all of them. Unfortunately, they were all much more different than what he was used to. Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji, Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, Inazuka Kiba, and Uchiha Sasuke, almost all the clan heirs entered the classroom, and needless to say, but Naruto wasn't impressed. As expected, Sasuke had the strongest chakra out of all of them, including the civilian students. That was probably why he became the top of his class. Well, it was either that or the unhinged hatred he had for his brother, Uchiha Itachi, that fueled his performances. Naruto had seen glimpses of Itachi in Iruka and Mizuki's memories. He'd read about the Uchiha massacre. Supposedly Uchiha Itachi slaughtered everyone. Can't really tell if that's a hard feat or not depending on the chakra levels here. Still, if Sasuke's alive, then no doubt he's going to want revenge. That's if he knows Itachi even did it. If no one told this Naruto about the Kyuubi god, then it stands to reason why someone might not tell him about Itachi. He seems to prefer being by himself, though he does, secretly, enjoy this rivalry we have going on, I guess. That could be a good focal point, but none I'm not too keen on observing. That said, if I'm led to his brother, then I should get closer to the other mysteries surrounding this world, Naruto thought as he watched Sasuke take a seat next to him. The Uchiha offered no words of recognition. He just sat there, waiting for his turn, barely considering Naruto in existence. Well, that was just fine. The blonde didn't care much either way. Naruto, what are you doing here? This isn't the room for dropouts. You can't be in here. The young man noticed his name called and turned to see Shikamaru looking at him, very surprised. Nara Shikamaru, one of the smartest men in the United Nations of Elements. The Nara clan was considered a clan of welcome shinobi advisors thanks to their keen intellect. They were also some of the most motivated members of Konoha before it became one with the other four nations. Shikamaru had actually become the leader of the entire information network regarding intel for the United Nations of Elements. His keen intellect had won numerous awards and medals in the fields of battle where he'd been promoted to Jonin in just 1 year of leaving the academy. Naruto had worked with him before, and why wouldn't he? After all, the Nara was the blonde's right-hand man. A shame to see this one didn't have the same drive. He could tell from the slouch and lazy look in the eyes. Still, he most likely had the Nara intelligence. That seemed to be something that whole clan had in droves. Iruka-sensei let me redo it and I passed, he replied with a bit of a yawn while Shikamaru's mouth thinned. He looked at the book his friend was reading. He raised an eyebrow. You even understand that stuff you're reading? You always said you'd never pick up a book as long as you lived, he chuckled out. Naruto shrugged. Never's a long time, he answered and flipped one of the pages. Shikamaru looked at his friend for a moment before he made his way to the seat behind the blonde. After a moment, the young man finished the book and placed it in his backpack. Worthless. All of it worthless. He pinched the bridge of his nose. All evidence points that this is indeed another world. What am I going to do? I'll have to figure something out eventually. Also, why does Hinata keep looking at me? He thought as he felt the Hyuga gaze on him. He sighed. He and Hinata were not friends in his world. Hell, they were barely even acquaintances. Neither really spoke to the other unless they had to. Despite being part of the four clans that helped found Konoha, the Hyuga and the Uzumaki had a general dislike of each other. At most, they tolerated the other. Whatever. I don't have time to figure her out. What should I do? The blonde agonized to himself as he thought over his next course of action. I win. I got here first. Everyone in the classroom gave pause when two young girls came through the door, one with pink hair and the other with light blonde hair. Both glared at each other. Wow, look at you Sakura, racing to school. I see you still haven't grown up, the blonde said to the one with pink hair named Sakura. It's called power walking, Ino. You'd know something about it if you exercised from that flab on your stomach. The girl called Sakura chuckled as she panted in uneven breaths. Once she regained herself, her eyes quickly scanned the room. When she found her target, she wasted no time and hurried over through the desks until she came forward. Hello, Sasuke-kun, nice day isn't it? Sakura asked with her best smile. The young Uchiha turned to her. His face remained even, unconcerned and uninterested. He had been thinking about who his teammates would be. If he was going to have to work in a cell, then he hoped it would be with people who stayed out of his way. The fact that he even had to attend this little sensei meet-up was annoying. He had better things to do. Seeing the Uchiha not answer her, Sakura gulped. Okay, Sakura, you've got his interest. Just play it forward, she told herself. Would you mind if I sat next to you? Who knows, we might be on the same team so maybe we could get to know each other better. She asked, her voice shaking with each uttered word as her mind took her to fantasies untold. First, they'd be on the same team, then they'd start out as friends, then they'd be something more, Kaya. Suddenly, Sakura found her arm grabbed. Hey, why should you get to sit next to Sasuke-kun? Ino asked. Ha, I got here first. Of course, I'm going to sit next to Sasuke-kun. Sakura growled as she and the Yamanaka heiress glared at each other. Hey, I was here before both of you. I'm sitting next to Sasuke-kun. No, I am. I was here before all of you. No, I was. No, me. Would you all shut up? As if a balloon had popped, everyone in the class stood or sat in utter shock as Naruto roared at the girls fighting right next to him. This was stupid. How the hell was he supposed to think with all this damn arguing over a damn preteen heartthrob? This world was starting to piss him off. The girls widened their eyes as they stared at the blonde who just erupted in front of them. Even Sasuke was a bit shocked at the outburst. Once things quieted down, Naruto scowled as he sat in his chair. This world was bullshit. All of it was bullshit. Why couldn't he just die at his old age and enter the afterlife? Why'd he have to suffer this shit? Not even the theories on chakra displacement and redistribution had angered him so much. He had even made theories on the complex formulas between Hoshigaku's star training and the chakra veins of the earth that infuriated him less. Now, all that was left was what he was going to. Naruto paused. He felt something strike his head. He'd been so lost in thought that the blow didn't even really faze him until he became aware of this light-itching sensation. He turned his head and he noticed a fist, courtesy of Sakura, clenched from the blow she'd just dealt to him. His eyes narrowed. He quickly released a burst of pure chakra so fast that no one would have seen or felt it. However, it quickly disrupted the connection of the one he knew who was observing him. That damned Sandame. Who are you telling to shut up, Naruto? Why are you even here? In case you forgot, this is a classroom for those who passed. I don't know where you stole that headband from, but you should return it. This isn't a game. This is why no one likes you. You always pull stupid stuff like kneel. Suddenly, Sakura felt a shiver run through her spine. Everyone stood up in utter shock as the young girl fell to her knees and placed her forehead on the floor. What the, Sakura, what are you? Ino began to say before Naruto pointed a finger at her. Silence, he said, and, just like with Iruka, Ino's voice was silenced. Her mouth closed and she couldn't open it. Everyone backed away from Naruto as he stood up and towered over Sakura. Then, in a moment that shocked those present, he raised his foot and slammed it over her head. Sasuke widened his eyes. Kiba and Shikamaru gawked. Even Hinata and Choji gasped in astonishment at what the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was doing. No one had ever seen him do this before. Girls like you are prettiest when they keep their mouths shut, Haruno Sakura. I'm actually surprised you passed the course given your abysmal chakra reserves. To think I actually had some respect for you at one point. You should be thankful that I'm lenient, Dadbeo. Most people have died for less than striking me. Do it again, and forget Sasuke, but I'll make sure no man ever finds you desirable. Understood? Naruto asked, pressing his foot harder on the young girl's head. It hurts, she exclaimed, but Naruto pressed down harder. Sakura squirmed beneath him as she tried to raise her head, but the pain of his foot against her was more than she could take. She felt like she was trying to lift up a large boulder filled with iron. It was starting to hurt, a lot. As the pain escalated, she started to cry. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Mind repeating yourself? He asked. I understand, Naruto. Sakura whimpered. Once she said that, Naruto took his foot off her head and nodded. Good. Now go sit somewhere else. You're bothering me, the blonde said before Sakura and Ino realized they could lean up and talk again. How he wondered what Hiruzen's face must have looked like when his little technique started working again. Quickly, everyone gave Naruto a wide berth, freaked out by what they had seen. Even Sasuke was looking at the blonde like he'd never seen him before in his entire life. What the hell was that? How did he make her fall that easily? Sasuke thought to himself as he watched Naruto pull out a piece of paper and begin writing on it. As Naruto stared at the piece of paper, his mind oblivious to the students staring at him, he suddenly felt something click within his mind. There's an idea. However, I'll have to play this carefully. I could extract the memories from the Sandame Hokage and what he knows. However, I can't extract his memories and guard against his Anbu guards at the same time. No doubt they're always around him in some capacity. Well, this Naruto seemed to have a good relationship with the Sandame Hokage from what I've gathered. I could make use of that, Naruto thought to himself as he continued to write on his piece of paper. After some time, Iruka came through the door, a handful of papers in his hand. He noticed the tenseness in the room. Everyone seemed to be looking at Naruto, even Sasuke. They all almost looked fearful. The Chunin sighed. What prank did the troublemaker pull this time? It hadn't been the first time the class was scared of the blonde's pranking ability. Hopefully, it'd be the last after today. Alright, all of you, this'll be my last lecture to you, so make sure that you listen well. As of today, you are all shinobi, members of Konoha, and young bearers of the Will of Fire. I know it will be difficult, and downright horrible for most of you, but I believe in you. You are the next protectors of this village. You've all faced many hardships, struggles, and painstaking hours of practice to get here, but that's nothing. What you will endure next will surely test your resolve. As of today, you are all genin, a low-level shinobi. All genin shall be grouped into 3-man cells. Each of them will be led by a jonin, an elite shinobi, Iruka said to everyone. The young students began murmuring to themselves while Naruto narrowed his eyes. Tisk, such a waste of time. Whoever made this type of system must not have had too many elite shinobi to work with. This is way too inefficient in the long run, the blonde thought, but kept his opinion to himself. Given this Naruto's relationship with everyone else, it would have just been senseless rambling anyway. We've set up these teams on a balance of strength and abilities, we feel it'll make it fair for everyone to shine that way. However, that's all the help you'll get from the academy. If you want to stand out further, you'd better train hard. Now then, allow me to announce the squads, Iruka said, a wide smile on his face. To be honest, Naruto tuned that out. HMPH, in case the plan with Hiruzen doesn't work out, then I might need to look for other sources. Depending on how long these assignments take, I might leave a clone here and exit the village. I don't have time to deal with this mundane work, Dadbeo. I'll also need some people to test my theories on. I think I know where to look also. Plus, I want to take a look at the Earth's chakra veins as well. I'll need to go somewhere far for that, farther than what's currently available to me, the blonde thought to himself. Team 7. Uzumaki Naruto, Haruno Sakura. Some people shivered and looked at the pink-haired girl with a mixture of pity. Even Ino felt it, and she was very tempted to tell Iruka about what Naruto had done, but something stopped her. Something made her fear the consequences if she did. Something made her know that she would not enjoy the outcome of her choice if she didn't keep her mouth shut. And Uchiha Sasuke, Iruka finished while some of the girls groaned. There was no more pity in their eyes. It let Sakura suffer with Naruto. To have Sasuke on her team was enough. However, Sakura instantly forgot her plight and screamed for joy. Yes, true love conquers all. If I just stay out of Naruto Baka's way, then Sasuke-kun and I will be alone together whenever we want. Sakura claimed inwardly before she gloated about it in Ino's face. Naturally, the blonde hated it before getting into a spiel with the Nara about the matter. Meanwhile, the young Uchiha frowned. Good. Now I can find out how the Dobi did whatever he did to Sakura. Once that's done, I'll make sure neither of them slow me down, by getting rid of them, Sasuke thought as his eyes narrowed. If he was going to complete his revenge, then he didn't need the added baggage. Meanwhile, Naruto snorted. So, I'm with Sakura and Sasuke. It's a shame. In my world, Sakura was known as a successful negotiator between the United Nations of Elements and the growing empires that connected from the rest of the Fallout nations. She completed the Shinobi's medical guide, which had been left undone. I'm sure she married Gaara and moved to Suna last I heard of her. Haruno would kill herself if she saw this version of her. Then there's the Uchiha. If I recall, he became the Anbu commander by the age of 14 when I started bringing the knowledge of pure chakra to everyone. He and I benefited the most from it. I wonder if this one has the same potential. I could make some use of him if he does, the blonde thought to himself again. Team 8. Hyuga Hinata, Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino. Iruka called as the respective clan heirs leaned up when their names were called. Team 9 is still in circulation, so I shall move on. Team 10. Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji, Iruka answered. Ino groaned sadly while Shikamaru laughed at her expense. Funny how fortune never favors the haughty sometimes. Soon, one by one, all the students filed out of the class for lunch. They returned about 30 minutes later and their teams were filed out of the class, except for Team 7. Naruto decided to stay in the classroom, and when Sasuke and Sakura returned, he noticed the Uchiha's angry expression along with Sakura's solemn one. Young love truly sucks. That said, he cared for neither and waited with them. Soon, 30 minutes passed. 1 hour passed. 2 hours passed. Man, our sensei sure is late. Don't you think so, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked the Uchiha who sat on the other side of the room. She sat with him while Naruto sat on the other side of the room. Unknown to either of them, Naruto's patience was wearing thin. He had important things to do and they were getting delayed with each passing hour. Not to mention the fact that he saw the Sandaime and Hatake Kakashi enter his apartment. True, he didn't fortify it since that would have raised suspicions, but that was beside the point. The blonde had been watching the two and he had to guess that Kakashi was going to be their Jonin sensei. Not only did he go to Naruto's apartment, but he also went to Sasuke and Sakura's home as well. To be honest, Naruto was surprised. He'd heard of Kakashi. The man had been Sasuke's instructor before the boy made it to Anbu Commander. He was one of the most powerful shinobi before the world came to know of pure chakra, and he was one of the most powerful after its exposure. In an alliance between Kurigakure and Konohagakure, Kakashi and Jonin Commander, Terumi Mei, were married off with the former going to live with the latter. The many times that Naruto had journeyed to the village, he'd seen a few kids from them. Apparently, even Kakashi's father decided to move to the village to be with his son and teach his children swordsmanship. That only further strengthened the ties between Kiri and Konoha. That nation sure loved its bloodline people. Unfortunately, that didn't seem to be the case with this world. There's even a war going on over there at this moment. Might be worth investigating, the blonde thought to himself. A few more minutes of observing Hiruzen and Kakashi passed before Naruto ceased his viewing. It seemed their Jonin sensei finally decided to pay them a visit. How polite. Naruto turned his head to the door just as it slid open. Sasuke and Sakura perked up as well when they all saw the silver-haired Jonin come through the door, his only visible eye lazily staring at them all. If I had to give my first impressions on all of you, then I'd say you all look like a bunch of idiots. Anyway, follow me, he said as he turned around and left. Did he call us idiots? Sakura asked while Sasuke scowled. Naruto rolled his eyes and slipped out of his desk. He spoke to neither as he stuffed his hands in his pockets and followed after the Jonin. It wasn't long before Sasuke and Sakura followed suit as well. The group of four marched up to the roof of the academy. Naruto watched Kakashi lean against the railing. He decided to lean against one of the white arches that helped design the roof. Then, his new teammates, Sakura and Sasuke, came as well. He watched them take a seat on the steps. Everyone sighed as a cool breeze came over them for a moment before Kakashi spoke. Alright, glad to see you three can follow basic instructions. Let's hope it stays that way. Anyway, I think it's about time we all learn about each other. We're gonna be a team after all, right? So why don't we do some introductions? He asked. Sakura cocked her head to the side. Introductions? What for? She asked. Kakashi sighed. I see some of us have selective hearing. We're gonna be a team. We have to find out about ourselves. Things we like, things we hate, our dreams for the future, or even our hobbies. You know, things like that, he answered, which made the young Haruno glare for the earlier part. Why don't you go first, Kakashi-sensei? Show us how it's done and we'll follow you. We gotta know about you first. Sakura claimed. Kakashi blinked. Me? Well, alright then. I suppose that's fair. My name is Hatake Kakashi. Things I like, things I hate. I don't really feel like telling you that right now. My dreams for the future. Can't say I've thought about it. My hobbies. Well, I have lots of them. There you go. Now, how about you, standing so far away? The oldest of the four spoke to Naruto. Sakura shivered when her eyes landed on Naruto. She quickly trembled when she remembered what happened a few hours ago, and the Jonin didn't miss that. In fact, he narrowed his visible eye in thought. It had been a weird sequence of events when the Sandame's crystal ball jutsu stopped working for a few minutes. At one point, the pink-haired girl struck the blonde, then jutsu got disrupted. When everyone could see again, Sakura was in another seat and all the girls clattering on about Sasuke were eerily silent. They almost looked afraid. What was she so scared of? Naruto faced everyone and then looked at the sky. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. Things I like. Dunno. I haven't explored them too much. Things I hate. All of you in this backwater world I'm forced to live in. My dreams for the future. I'll get back to you on that. My hobbies. Eating ramen, I guess, the blonde replied lazily. He really didn't feel like giving an answer to all of this nonsense. As soon as they were done with this farce, he was leaving. He still had to go back to the Uchiha clan and scout more chakra auras before they completely dissipated. They wouldn't last long and he still wanted to investigate them. Not only that, but he also had to begin his own plans, and that required him to not spend the entire day surrounded by these idiots. Well, that was informative. Certainly different from what I read on his profile. Maybe he's going through a phase. I wouldn't doubt it, Kakashi thought as he eyed the Kyuubi Jinchuriki weirdly before he turned to the others. Alright Pinky, you next. Sakura smiled. Hello, my name is Haruno Sakura. The thing I like is, well, the person I like is, you my hobbies are, hehehehe, well, and my dreams for the future, well, they, hehehehehe, she giggled and squealed as she looked at the Uchiha heir every single time. Naruto scoffed while Kakashi shook his head. Sasuke was getting a tiny bit more irritated the longer this introduction went on. However, he persisted through it. And the things you hate? Hatake asked, even his patience wearing thin. I hate Naruto, Sakura exclaimed before she shivered. When she turned her head, she saw the blonde's gaze upon her. He then smiled. Don't worry, Sakura-chan. I hate you even more than you hate me, so fair's fair, he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. In fact, Sakura almost thought she saw herself die over 1,000 times. Kakashi sighed. Girls her age are more interested in boys than in training. I guess that's to be expected, he thought before he motioned for Sasuke to start. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I hate a lot of things. I don't really like anything, the raven-haired boy heavily stressed this, which made Sakura gasp in shock before he continued. And what I have isn't a dream because it will be a reality. I'm going to restore my clan and kill a certain someone, he uttered, his gaze filled with all the hate he could muster from the visions and images that plagued his mind. He still remembered the blood, the screams, the horror, and the pain as his family, his clan, was cut down like pigs in a slaughterhouse. So he's going after Uchiha Itachi after all. If that's the case, then maybe I could use him to my benefit. If this is a world with imperfect chakra, then he'll be another example, especially given that he's from a noble clan. Plus, if he's anything like the Sasuke from my world, then I'll need that potential against whoever brought me here, Naruto thought while Kakashi narrowed his eyes. As I thought. This will have to be handled delicately, he said. As for what Sakura thought, it was too written across her face. One might as well have put a big black mark on her head that said, Sasuke, on it. Kakashi leaned forward. Well, good job. You all have your own likes, differences, and things that make you unique. We'll be going on our first mission tomorrow, he proclaimed. Oh, and what will that be? Sakura asked. It's a task that the four of us will do together. It will be a bit of survival training, he replied. Naruto's lips curved upwards while Sasuke and Sakura frowned. Really? I thought this was the day that we finally become real shinobi, not get more training in. That's what the academy was for and how we got here. What aren't you telling us? She questioned. Suddenly Kakashi started laughing. You really want to know? Well, I'll tell you. This isn't like your standard academy tests. Think about it. Out of all 27 students that came here, only 9 will be selected to become genin. The other 18 will be weeded out and sent back to the academy. In other words, you either pass this test or you don't. And the odds of you failing are at least 66%. You got me. All the academy did was show us which of you would most likely become genin. Whether you actually do or not, that's all on me, the Jonin said. I expected inefficiency, but I didn't think it was this bad, Naruto mumbled to himself. Be at the designated training area at 5 in the morning. Make sure you bring your shinobi gear, you're gonna need it, the silver-haired man remarked as he patted his legs. He could see the looks of determination on the faces of 2 of his students. Good. Motivation was a good thing to lean on, especially for something like this. However, when his eyes landed on his 3rd student, he raised an eyebrow. Never had he seen someone so disinterested in the trial before them. In fact, it seemed like Naruto didn't even hear the news. He just continued looking at the sky as if this whole thing was just a dumb, simple formality that one needed to do to go about their day. Well, whatever, if he couldn't get motivated, then that wasn't Kakashi's problem. Minato-sensei, while I do feel for him, I won't hold back. It's better if he doesn't become a shinobi now instead of losing his life later. I hope you'll understand and forgive me, Kakashi thought before he smiled. Alright, you're all dismissed. Oh, and I wouldn't recommend eating breakfast tomorrow. You'll puke, he said, which got Sasuke and Sakura to take this even more seriously than before. However, Naruto chuckled. Ah, I think I fell for that one too, he thought before he realized there was nothing more to say. Without another word, he left the 3 on that rooftop and made for him. Sakura and Sasuke gawked as they watched him leave. Was he always that fast? Hell, even Kakashi was a little amazed. He knew people had a hard time catching Naruto to make him pay for his pranks, but never to this extent. Oh, Sakura, actually you stay behind. I'd like to speak with you, Kakashi said while Sasuke got up and left. Sakura groaned in disappointment. Now she couldn't get to Sasuke to ask him if he wanted to get dinner later. That said, it was probably bad if she didn't listen to her sensei on the first day. What is it, Kakashi-sensei? She asked. Kakashi narrowed his eyes. Tell me about what happened in the classroom today before the Jonin-sensei were assigned, he said, which made her shiver. Naruto arrived back at his apartment and already he could tell something was wrong. It seemed that some guests had visited his place when he was done. No, he wasn't talking about Hiruzen and Kakashi. He already knew about them. 5 signatures, each of them arranging from Chunin to Jonin. What did I do to garner such attention? The young man asked with a smirk before he held up a hand sign and pushed his pure chakra through his quarters. By doing this, any irregular chakra would react to his own and thus would be easy for him to locate. His smile widened. He walked back to one of his cabinets and he noticed a listening device. That wasn't here before. The young man then walked over to his lap and pulled out another listening device. The cabinet, the lamp, beneath his bed springs, behind his clothes hamper, just behind his shower head, all of these places contained listening devices and 1 or 2 cameras. Of course, the cameras he didn't actively look for. He knew they were there from the way his chakra resonated with the impure chakra of this world. Well, whoever did this is certainly organized. I'll have to meet with the people who've shown me such respect, Naruto thought before he grabbed one of the listening devices. Most like to think that residue chakra doesn't exist. However, every living thing in the world gave off some form of residual chakra. No matter what a person touched, no matter how great their mastery, they left tiny traces of their chakra everywhere. Naturally, this chakra didn't stay long, usually absorbed by natural chakra that flowed through the air. Even pure chakra wasn't exempt from this, but pure chakra was such a refined natural energy that it only lingered for maybe 1 or 2 minutes before dissipating. Anyway, what Naruto was getting at here was that each of these tracers had some impure chakra imprints on them. Alright, let's see who I'll be meeting with tonight, the Kyuubi host said as he closed his eyes and synced his chakra with the impure chakra on the tracker. The blonde inhaled and exhaled as his chakra drew him out of his apartment. It hopped along rooftops, sailed through the air and entered a rather inconspicuous shop. The chakra passed through a large brown door and fell into the darkness. It moved with such speed that no sensor was able to pick it up. Then, he found what he was looking for. An old man, over half his body wrapped in bandages. Then the chakra connected Naruto with one of the man's many kneeling agents. Oh, Shimura Danzo-kun. I read about him in the annals of Konoha's history. He was the man who led the war against Iwagakure. He led a group of highly skilled shinobi, called Root, against 1500 shinobi. His deeds made him recognized and a Root Academy was made. He's one of the reasons Konoha even won the war against Iwagakure. Seems he's lived longer in this world than the other. Also seems like his Root members are much younger, not too many developed chakra veins. I could make use of these. Thank you Danzo-kun, you actually forwarded my plans more than even I anticipated, Naruto thought as he watched the old war hawk speak to his men. Has everything been put in place? Danzo asked. Yes, Danzo-sama, we have infiltrated the Kyuubi host's apartment and done as you have instructed. We shall monitor his progress and ensure that he continues to remain loyal to the village. We shall also monitor the Uchiha's apartment, one of them said. The old man slowly hummed, his cane pounding the floor as Naruto observed. Very good. I think I don't need to tell you all what a tragedy it almost was for the boy to steal the scroll of sealing. Such a thing must never happen again. Also, how have searches been on locating Mizuki? All traitors to Konoha must be dealt with, he replied. Nothing as of yet, Danzo-sama. However, we are confident that results will be produced soon, one of them said. Naruto then watched the man raise his cane before he slammed it into the shoulder of one of them. None of them flinched though. I expected results the instant it was reported. I didn't ask for soon. See that he is brought in. Given that he was defeated by an academy dropout, I struggle to see how much use he can be, but if he can bring us contact with Orochimaru then that alone makes up for his incompetence. How is the situation brewing in the other nations? Another bowed. Yes sir, the spies in Kurigakure will be ready to take control of either the Mizukage or the rebel forces that dictate a new leader. We also have our spies in Iwagakure that tell of a potential alliance between Kumo and Iwa. We believe they might be bolstering their forces against Konoha again. Then we will see to it that they fail. For we are the unseen ones who support the great tree of Konoha from the depths of the earth, Danzo exclaimed. The others quickly chanted this mantra over and over while Naruto dispelled his technique. He chuckled. Maybe I can find a use for you after all, Danzo-kun, Naruto thought before he shrugged off his clothes. He then changed and walked back outside. He then made his way towards the Konoha hospital. It didn't take him long to arrive at the hospital. Once he did, he quickly cast the same jutsu that allowed him to enter the Uchiha clan compound unperturbed. He walked inside just as someone was walking out and slipped through the door. Now sure he could have done a much sneakier way such as coming in through the rooftops, but where was the fun in that? He walked past the registration office and the open foyer filled with coughing people or injured patients. He looked at them all. He could have healed them all, but that would take too long and draw too much attention. For what he needed, he required the most desperate patience. The young Uzumaki, with the help of some directions, traveled to the end-of-life care ward part of the hospital. He entered the part where most people, whether too old or too sick, ready to die, were kept. He had to admit, as he moved through the halls filled with caring nurses or doctors giving patients fortunate or unfortunate news, he felt rather melancholy. He too had been at the end of his life, but he'd been surrounded by his wives and his children. He'd been surrounded by his loved ones as the light in his eyes faded. He'd done his part in making his world better, and he only hoped his kids would do better. It made him aware of his age. Maybe he should have truly died. Sometimes, the old things must die for the new things to grow and take their place. Though it took some of his time, he placed his hand on some of the elderly. A brief dream of happy times and ease of pure chakra into the body. That way, they would pass on with happiness and without suffering. Anyway, Naruto did this for a couple of people before he finally paused in his steps. Yes, it's okay, mother. Yes, Mizuki-kun and I are doing fine. Yes, I promise. No, please don't give up. You can't stop fighting. Why you still have to see Mizuki-kun and I get married? I'm sure a cure is coming for you. Please, don't leave me. You're all I have left, a soft voice sobbed. Naruto gently walked over to a door and he noticed a woman with long, braided, black hair kneeling beside a white bed. She sobbed as she held a very pale, very sickly, woman's hand. He walked into the room, his jutsu still keeping him concealed. When he got a good look at the kneeling woman, his eyes narrowed. Ah, this is Mizuki's fiancée, or was to be fiancée. I did briefly see her in my search of his memories, but I disregarded them for other information. Tsubaki, I believe. Odd, I don't have anything on her from my world. Must not have ever seen her, he thought to himself before he watched the woman named Tsubaki lean up. It's okay, mother. Everything will work out. I promise. Tsubaki said before she got up and turned around. Naruto saw the flash of determination in her eyes. It seemed she'd resolved to go through with something. Now what that something was he didn't know, but it clearly a last resort. If it wasn't, things might not have gotten to this point. The pale woman coughed. Oh, that girl. How lucky was I to have such a wonderful daughter. A girl like her shouldn't be worrying about her dying mother. She should find a nice man, one that will make her happy just like Junsuke-kun made me. I wish I could see that moment, but I fear the fight in me has died away, the woman said before she violently coughed again. She clenched her chest. Naruto scratched his chin. Honestly, she didn't look that old. Indeed, she was very skinny, weak, and dying, but she didn't look too old. She looked around her 50s or 60s. Good. This was a perfect candidate. The blonde walked outside the room and he saw Tsubaki leaning against the wall. She held up a piece of paper with an address on it. The woman held her head down. I'd ask you to stay your course of action unless you want to waste this opportunity, Naruto suddenly spoke, which made Tsubaki jump. She grabbed a kunai from her pouch and held it up. Who's there? She hissed quietly. This was still a hospital and she didn't want to startle those sleeping. Naruto quickly lowered the jutsu and waved off the kunai. You can put the glorified knife away now, Tsubaki-san. I'm not here to fight, he answered while she slowly withdrew the kunai. You're Uzumaki Naruto-san. What are you doing here? She asked suspiciously. Mizuki had told her about Naruto. He never failed to fill her head with how evil the boy was. She never really believed any of it, but one could never be too sure with the host of the Fox Demon. That said, how did he sneak up on her? True, she might not be the most highly ranked kunoichi, but she still considered herself adept. How did a young boy suddenly get so close to her? I have a proposition for you, he answered. A what? Tsubaki asked. This was the failure of the academy. Could he even spell proposition? A proposition, Tsubaki-san. I heard you speaking with your mom over there. Look, I'll extend your mother's lifespan for another few years. In return, I need you for something important. Don't worry, you won't have to break any Konoha laws to do it, the young genin answered. Almost immediately Tsubaki was suspicious. She'd been contemplating becoming the worker of one of the underground auction houses. They had talented people in the field of tracking. She hoped she could pay for their services and held her track down Senju Tsunade. She could then bring the woman back and help heal her mother, but that would take time. Time wasn't something she had these days. Typically, Tsubaki chuckled. Sorry, Naruto-san, I don't think whatever pills or medication you have will help my mother. Even though you shouldn't be eavesdropping, I thank you for your concern, but, my mother will be fine, the woman said, though neither believed her words. If you're trying to fool yourself, then good work. You and I both know that if she stays like that, she'll barely last to the end of the week, Naruto remarked, which made Tsubaki shiver. How did he know that? He'd never been in any of the examination rooms or doctor's appointments that she'd been in. The Chunin grabbed her kunai again. Who are you and what have you done with Uzumaki Naruto? No simple boy would know that. She replied. She was ready to engage, but suddenly the blonde pointed a finger at her. Sit down, he commanded. Suddenly, Tsubaki gasped as she leaned back and fell on her. Sitting down perfectly in front of the blonde while he yawned. What did you? Mizuki-kun was right. You are a demon, the woman said, but Naruto rolled his eyes. I'm a demon just because I could command you to sit down. In a world with so much jutsu that could level terrain, mess up the mind, and blow up miles of buildings, it's the fact that I made you sit down that proved I'm a demon. He asked. Well, when he said it so blandly like that, it made Tsubaki feel kind of stupid, even if she was a little weirded out by what was happening. But then how did you? She was cut off by a hand. Look, I'm not here for your soul or anything. I just need your help. In return, I'll extend your mother's life until you can find someone to help her, but I can only extend her life by maybe 10 or 12 years, he said. Why should I believe you? You're just a kid, barely even out of the academy. I've spoken to numerous doctors, some of the best in Konoha, and none of them could help my mother. What can you do? She asked. All of these were valid questions, and fortunately, Naruto could answer them all. Gimme your hand, he said. Tsubaki noticed he didn't order her to do it, but she found herself offering it anyway. When she grabbed a hold of Naruto's hand, the former fiancé of Mizuki felt like her world nearly shattered into pieces. She was in awe as the most immense feeling of power surged through her body. She couldn't describe it. She felt strong. She felt good. She felt amazing. She felt powerful. The black-haired woman widened her eyes as she looked up and noticed it was Naruto giving her the chakra from within his body. Was this the Kyuubi's chakra? No, it couldn't be. She'd been a little kid when she first felt its chakra. It was violent and merciless. This was just pure power like she'd never felt before. With this, she felt like she could do anything. She felt like she could even battle anyone in Konoha, even the Anbu Black Ops units. Naruto let go of her hand. That is what I'm gonna give to your mother. I recommend you keep her in the hospital, but she won't be dying anytime soon. And that was just a small portion, he said before he turned back and walked to Tsubaki's mother's room. Wait a minute. What was that? I didn't agree yet, Tsubaki replied as she got up. However, as soon as she placed her hand on the floor, she stilled when her palm cracked the tiles. In fact, she could see a large handprint from her own strength. Though this shocked her, she quickly ran to meet the blonde while Naruto rolled his eyes. Alright, I don't want to rush you, but I do have other things to do. I've already wasted enough time dealing with Kakashi's shit. Had I known he would have been so late, I would have just used a clone to do this, the blonde grumbled. That was amazing. What was that? She asked. Naruto shook his head. I'd rather not tell you until I have your cooperation. I'd take too much time to explain, and even then I highly doubt you'll believe me. All you should know is that it's nothing to do with the Kyuubi and there will be no adverse side effects to your mother, he replied. Tsubaki opened her mouth and closed it. Why me? She asked. The young man chuckled. You're not the only one. I'm looking for other people. As for what I need from you, well, I'll need you to test theories of mine. Again, tell no one about this, he answered. It's not illegal, is it? She asked. It won't break any Konoha laws as I've said, but it will raise some questions that I'm not prepared for, or don't want to answer right now. That's all you'll have to do. You have my word, he answered. Why did Tsubaki feel like she wasn't talking to the hyperactive knucklehead prankster that terrorized the village? She actually felt like she was talking to her Hokage. Every word in Naruto's voice was smooth and unstressed. If he was a demon, then hell demons sure know how to speak eloquently. Now she wondered if Mizuki was just trying to push his own prejudices about the blonde on her. This felt almost too good to be true. Just when she was at the very bottom of her life, the devil decided to give her a hand. Well, she'd like to claim an angel, but given the blonde's reputation, it seemed a little apropos. Seeing the woman's hesitancy, Naruto exhaled. Alright, how about this? I'll give you a freebie. I'll give her 2 months of extra time. If you're convinced, then we can talk further in that time. If I'm lying then, you'd no doubt be continuing with your last resort. How is that? He asked. Tsubaki opened and closed her mouth. She didn't really trust herself to speak. Instead, she just nodded. At this point, what did she have to lose? The two returned to the room and Tsubaki saw her mother sleeping. She watched Naruto approach the bed. He placed his hand on top of the woman. He pushed a bare minimum amount of his chakra into the woman's body. Her mother inhaled and groaned for a moment, but Tsubaki nearly cried when she saw some actual color return to her mother's face. There. I hope I will see you soon, he said. He bowed and walked away. He walked through a few other rooms and helped some people before returning home. He had to get ready for tonight. Shimura Danzo was not having a very good day. Truth be told, he never really had good days. He just had days, long, agonizing days spent trying to make Konoha the nation it deserved to be. He wanted to make it the nation the Nadaime and Shadaime would be proud of. Nevertheless, the village was weak. It had been declining in strength as of late. Not only were talented shinobi becoming few and far in between, but the thought of too much peace was making the nation too weak. Danzo had told Hiruzen about this many times, but the old man still desired his peaceful ways. He desired peace so much it almost seemed to be a fault in some ways. Some might think the old warhawk didn't want peace. Of course he did. However, he wanted the type of peace that came from every nation being absorbed into the great nation of Konoha. There were no elemental nations or the 5 great villages. There was only Konoha, the great village that expands the world. Some might call the man an extremist, but he called it dedication. In order to make the hard decisions, in order to allow others to live in the light, some had to fall to the darkness. He was willing to make the hard choices that Sarutobi would not. He was willing to become the demon that did the unspeakable deeds so that the angels could continue their work. Danzo walked through the secret hallways that Root used to maneuver through the village. He had just been in a conversation with Hyuga Hiyashi about hopefully recruiting the man's second daughter for the Root program. Hanabi was an extremely talented shinobi. One that he hoped would serve Konoha's purposes. However, the old Hyuga was stubborn. He had no faith that his daughter would be able to lead the clan, so he needed to groom Hanabi as its heiress. It was an expected decision. Danzo didn't see much hope for the man's first daughter either. That said, she did have the Byakugan. Perhaps a sort of arrangement could be made regarding the woman. Quietly, the only sound of his cane hitting the floor, Danzo entered his office. When he grabbed the door, his eyes narrowed. He inspected the door for traps. The knob felt warm, warmer than what should feel since he was the only one authorized to use it. Slowly, he opened the door and his frown deepened when he saw Uzumaki Naruto sitting in his chair, reading through highly classified documents that he shouldn't have been able to open. Those were lined with complex fuinjutsu formulas that not even Jiraiya of the Sannin could easily break. Ah, you've finally arrived. Good evening, Shimura Danzo-kun. I hope you've been having a pleasant day so far. Permit me to skip the pleasantries, Datbeo. I have to return home and prepare for my exercise against Kakashi in a few hours, so I'm short on time. Do come inside. I have a few questions I'd like answered. Trust me, I won't bite.